Welcome to our Urban Legends podcast. I'm Dr. Gloria McDaniel Hall. I've been a teacher, a principal, and assistant superintendent, all within urban schools in Chicago and around the country. Our Urban Legends podcast is a forum for sharing ideas, strategizing together, and supporting each other as we dismantle the deficit narratives sometimes associated with urban education and discuss where and how amazing work is being done. So good evening, Dr. Tyese and Principal Nikita Horn. I am so excited that you were able to join me today for another episode of Urban Legends, and you two are indeed Urban Legends. And Dr. Sims is even one of the OG Urban Legends. She is from the original group who came over to my apartment to just talk to me about this idea and help me put together the thought about what would eventually turn into this podcast. So I'm really excited to be talking to you and to your protege, Principal Horn. And I don't think I've had a group of people who one leader like helped the other in their leadership journey before. So this is exciting. So before we get started, I always ask my guests to just share briefly their story, your journey in education, and a little bit about the kinds of schools that you've worked in and some of the successes you've had. So let's just start with you, Dr. Sims.
Okay, I started out as a teacher at Austin Community High School on the West Side. I taught English there for one whole year. I actually loved it, but I had an opportunity I could not turn down. I was offered an English position at Hyde Park Academy High School, and I am an alumnus. So of course I wanted to go back to my foundation. And so when I got to Hyde Park, it opened up many, many opportunities. And I just didn't know at the time that I was being set up for leadership. So I started off as an English teacher. I became the freshman academy lead teacher, helped write a grant when small schools was really big. So we got a grant for like $500,000 to start these small schools. And then I led one, which was freshman academy. Then I became the AVID coordinator. And I loved the whole push for college first generation. So I did AVID for a few years. Then I was selected to be the IB middle school coordinator, but at the same time, I had an opportunity to be an assistant principal in Prairie Hill School District 144. Very interesting experience because there I was a AP shared between two schools. So 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, I was at one school, Wednesday and Thursday, one school, and I alternated every Friday. And so learning two different cultures in the same year, two different leaders, I think it really, really built my capacity. And so I did that for 1 year as an assistant principal, and then I became a principal within that district. And I did that for maybe 2.5 years. And then once again, back to CPS, my foundation. I joined AUSL. And I worked in plenty of schools, like got them started. So started out at Curtis, did some time at Harvard, and then went to Orr Academy High School. I stayed there for 5 years and then had an opportunity to come to elementary, and I've been at Bradwell now for 6 years.
That's amazing. I remember meeting you at Orr. And one thing that sticks out about your work, and you weren't Dr. Sims at the time, but every time I would be at Orr for a meeting or for a conference or for anything, like you would always be all over the place. And not only that, you knew all the students and you knew all your staff. So I knew you were a different kind of leader, but okay. All right, so Principal Horn, let's hear about your story.
Absolutely. I am also a product of Chicago Public Schools. I attended school on the south side of Chicago, but I started in my educational career also on the fabulous west side of Chicago, where I was a classroom teacher. I'm starting in kindergarten. And then I transitioned to middle school 7th and 8th grade math and science. I actually stayed at the same school for about 17 years. So my teaching career started at a school, and as a teacher, it ended at the same school. But within that school, I wore many hats. You know, I transitioned from primary to middle school. I was responsible for community relations, bringing in partnerships. I had a lot, well, over time, I eventually went into a lot of leadership roles at that school, leading the math department, the science department, serving as grade level chairperson, making sure that we develop many various community partnerships. I brought in a community partnership with an organization called YMen. There was also a community partnership that we had with Rush Hospital around bringing sex ed into our schools. So I spearheaded that. I was also a coach. I coached teams, double dutch sports, double dutch track, cheerleading. I had the #1 cheerleading team in the city of Chicago at one point. So just wearing many hats in that. When I became a teacher, I always had a desire to go into leadership. So I knew that eventually that's where I wanted my career to go. And funny story how I reached out to Dr. Sims, and she wasn't Dr. Sims at the time. I applied for a summer school position at Orr High School, where she spoke about being the principal there. I did get the position as a teacher to teach summer school at Orr. And I said, let me slide her my resume because I've obtained my credentials. And at that time, I gave her my resume. She said, give me a call. I gave her a call. She said, you know what? Your resume is good, but I need you to go back. I need more leadership experience. I need you to be more detailed. So that was when I first came to Orr. She's like,
like, I didn't say that.
I remember that. I remember. I absolutely remember. So, I didn't get an interview, but I did exactly what she asked me to do. I went back, I revised my resume. I told my current principal, I need more leadership experience. Give me some more within the school because I'm interested. I like to interview. The following year, I went back to Principal Sims again and said, I'm ready now. Resume now. She said, you know what? Ironically, you're reaching out at a time where I'm actually looking for an AP. And I guess, I did everything she asked. I went back, I got that leadership experience that she was looking for. We had an interview. We met one day. It was kind of informal at Chipotle. We went to that Chipotle. And even though it was informal at Chipotle, I was sweating. I was like, whew. It was her and her boss, the network chief, equivalent to a network chief at the time, where we had dinner. And I think we were at Chipotle for about 2 hours. And I'm like, not only was this interview, it was long, it was in depth, it was detailed. And I would say maybe a couple of days later, they showed up at my school unannounced. They wanted to see me in action as a classroom teacher. And I was confident, I'm confident in the work that I do. I have a passion around this work. I care about my students. And right before they came to the door, I said, okay, now you all make me look good. I make you all look good every day. And I need you all to make me look good. And apparently, it worked. It paid off. And I was offered the position to come on her team as the assistant principal of the School of Excellence. So transitioning from a regular network CPS school to the AUSL, Academy of Urban School Leadership Network, it was a culture shock in the beginning. But when I got there, it felt like home. And I credit that to Principal Sims at the time for her leadership and her guidance in transitioning into that new network of everything that AUSL had to offer.
Right. I think so. One of the things that you just mentioned, Principal Horn, that happened when I visited Dr. Sims' school a couple of weeks ago, I had to tell her that it felt like more of a family. It felt like people really cared about each other in the building. That is a huge school. And to make that happen is like almost unheard of, right? Because I go into schools all the time and not people greeting me, not people saying where I can go, like just pointing down the hall. But it leads me to the second big question, because both of you, people typically shy away from working in urban schools and working in some of the places where we have typically worked before. All my experience is in an urban school, either in the South Side of Chicago, West Side of Chicago, Cleveland, Ohio, Gary, Indiana, like all the spots. But you all not only started there, but you leaned into the work and haven't given up. And you're creating, both of you, from what I understand, and I've seen at Dr. Sims School, are creating these islands of excellence. What do you think like made you lean into the work that other people shy away from? Like, what is it? Is it something about you? Is it something about your background? What makes you lean in and like kind of like really love this work? Because I can tell you both love it.
I'll start. My students are no different than me. I am just older than them, and I have experience. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about where I grew up. I grew up on 57th in Peoria, 5745 South Peoria. That is the heart of Inglewood. It is no different than the students that over here. Then we moved to 35th in Calumet. Then we moved to 79th and Bishop. All of these communities are the same. What I experienced as a student was somebody who cared for me, encouraged me, believed in me, and it just created these qualities where I had some kind of confidence that I was somebody and that I can do whatever it is that I want to do. Because I don't think that my intellect is so much greater than the next person. It has to do with perseverance and determination.
Yes, it does.
And I do know when I came to Bradwell, people termed this school Badwell, right?
Oh.
No, it's not Badwell, it is Bradwell. And so there's nothing wrong with my kids' intellect, nothing. Now, they may have experienced some different things, but we can combat that. You know, I do believe in being a no-nonsense nurturer. I love you, but I'm still going to hold you to high expectations. And I'll support you through whatever it is that you need support, but I'm not going to feel sorry for you. And so I think that's what drives me to do this work, because I was one of them. I can look in their face and that's little Tyese. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Similar to Dr. Sims' story, just growing up and being a product of Chicago Public Schools, not always having a positive look in the media, or even in social media. At the time, social media wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
Right.
But those outlets that we see, wanting and knowing that our children deserve everything that every other child out there has. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you live in. It doesn't matter that they're Black, that they're brown, that they live in impoverished neighborhoods. A lot of the neighborhoods are food deserts. It doesn't matter about any of that. That does not determine who you are or where you can go. So that's why I do this work. That's why I love this work. That's why I continue to do this work in neighborhoods like where Dr. Sims grew up. That's why I'm in the neighborhood in the Austin community right now, serving as the principal of House School of Excellence, to let these kids know I want to make schools in our neighborhoods, in these neighborhoods. If I wouldn't want my child to attend this school, that's
I want to be here.
Yep. I need to make it a place where I would be proud to send my own child.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter that it's in a poor neighborhood, that it's minorities here, that it's crime. Once you come inside these doors, you have a safe place. And this is a place designed for learning. And that's what's going to happen. We're going to have you learn and grow so you can choose whatever you want to be in this world is possible.
I love it. I love it. And Tyese, where you lived, when you mentioned 57th, my first school, or one of the second school where I was principal, was on 55th and Wood. It was a couple blocks from there. And when I started there, it was turnaround before the word turnaround was actually used. When I started there, like they had 80% of the staff turnover every year. They had 6 principals in 5 years. They had so nobody trusted, nobody believed. Parents didn't believe that it was going to be different. Students didn't believe that it was going to be different. And so you have to go in to a situation like that with a different kind of like mindset. Like, look, you, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. And so I'm gonna be here, but just like you said, I'm gonna be this no nonsense type nurturer. We can't have you all running the halls. We gotta have you sitting in class and learning. And they allowed me to choose the teachers that I wanted. It just be, you can make a school have a different feel with the right leadership overnight almost. You could do that.
everything you said is everything that I learned from Dr. Sims. Just her approach, that no nonsense. And she believes, she knows that this is not work that she can do alone. And her concept of shared leadership is one of the main things that attributes to her success as a school leader, because it's not just her work alone. She knows that it's the input and the work of the team collectively. And what she does is builds that team. And it's not only a team, like you mentioned before, she builds a family. And we know that in family, we're going to have arguments sometimes. We're going to love each other. At the end of the day, we're always going to love each other.
Right.
We're always going to be family, but we're going to do that hard work and that tough work together. And we're going to stand by one another, because we know in the end, we're going to achieve our goals. And we always have our eyes on that end prize. And just her leadership in supporting me and coaching me and guiding me toward being able to do that as a leader, because I honestly didn't even know that I was ready to go into being the principal of my own school. Dr. Sims, so she said, "You're ready." I said, "I'm ready." I didn't even realize that I was ready.
When people can see it in you and you can't see it in yourself.
Absolutely.
One of the things I've always told Principal Horn, and I tell anybody who's kind of like under me, listen, there are going to be some key takeaways that are some must-haves that you must do. But there are going to be some things when you get your own, you're going to say, I don't want to do it just like that. I'm not. But the big rocks, that's all I want you to do, because I don't want you to be a carbon copy of
Can't
me.
be Tyese. They can't be you, and they can't be Nikita. You got to be yourself. Yes. So following like a cookie cutter approach does not work. But just like you said, the big rocks. And so that what Nikita said led me to the other question. So I had the honor of participating with Dr. Sims as she was finishing her doctorate. And this whole idea of distributed leadership, I had heard about it before, but never until I read her dissertation did I understand, like, oh, dang, that's how she's making this happen. So I don't know, Tyese, because I've been in so many schools, like I said, where people kind of hold the power to themselves. They do, because they're the principal. And they hold the power, and they end up either burning out, not being able to do a good job, because there's no way that you can do all of that on your own. It's just impossible, especially in Chicago public schools, Chicago public schools. It's impossible. So tell me how you did you read something and say, oh, I need to do this? Or was it already an idea that you had and you just found the research to like match what you were thinking about? But how did you come about being this distributed leader?
Actually, I kind of saw it modeled somewhat with my former boss, Dr. Turner. And I did stumble upon the term, because it's usually like in the corporate world, right? And then this whole thing about work-life balance. If anybody knows me, it's hard to read me if you're looking at social media, right? Because there's this one term like, oh, she's the partying principal, but people who know me behind the scenes, I'm up early, I'm staying up at night to get the things that I want done, but I'm not going to forsake who I am, right? So I'm going to balance that. In order to balance, I cannot be the person that does it everything. And then when I spoke about when I worked at Hyde Park, I was given so many leadership opportunities, but I was a young educator. I really didn't understand where that role was going to lead me. Now that I'm in a position to help others, I know how this will build their capacity and they can then achieve other goals. Or if I see something in them, I'm going to kind of nudge and push them along the way so they can have more opportunities. So I think it's just a matter of knowing that, one, I believe in work-life balance. I don't want to burn out. Two, I also know that I'm not an expert at everything, right? And I'm confident and comfortable with somebody knowing more than me. As long as I know the concept, the general gist, I ask some probing questions and it's logical and it makes sense, client will go with it, right? So I believe in listening to others. I'm clear about what my end goals are. And if it fits into those pieces, sure somebody else can lead it. And I do firmly believe in giving people their credit. You know, there are many leaders who they may do distributive leadership,
but they take the credit
claim it for themselves. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And they don't see the value in building others. And it's okay. That is something that many people don't do. So, you know, give yourself credit for doing that. And so I would always tell Nikita, like, Nikita, you know, you did this. I made sure they knew it was you. My current person, Brittany Neal, I made sure, because Tyese is not the end all be all, right? And so I know people inbox me like, you've had so many people come out. I see Nikita's this, Brittany's that, Marche's this. And I'm like, well, they just kind of listen. And it was something there. And again, just the shared part is me knowing that I cannot do it by myself.
But you know what else you do, I think, is you pick up on the talents and the like the skills that people have in a different way and capitalize on them. Like, even if it's a skill that is just like forming, like, oh, I know you can do this. Because people need to be pushed sometimes. So Nikita, how did you get pushed? What happened?
You already know what I'm about to say, right? I was pushed and I didn't even realize it. Emotional intelligence, right? I came and, you know, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm finally in this role. I know I'm ready. I can do this. And her having the ability to point out where I needed developing, I won't call it a weakness, but just to recognize an area that I could grow in. Right. And that would make me an even more effective leader. So having that ability to recognize that and not using that against me, but instead she coached and helped me to strengthen where I was weak. So I will forever, I'm forever appreciative of that, because that's hard, right? When someone says, you know the work, you know the math, you know you can do this, but you lack emotional intelligence. I'm like, what?
Not me. How dare you?
You know, and not all the times. And, you know, having the courage to have that difficult conversation with you. A lot of times people will shy away from what you know. A lot of times people don't care enough. A lot of times people are quick to point out your weaknesses, but they don't know how to build and strengthen those. Yes. And she was able to do that. And when she did that, that's when she said, you're ready. You're ready. So I appreciate that. And that's just, I think that's a part of that distributive leadership as well. You know, she was able to trust where she didn't expect me to be her. She allowed me to be me, and she was able to continue to be her. And she respected whether my decision would align with hers or not. She would say, well, this is what I think. And she always provided the why. It was always essential. If she did not agree, it wasn't, you know, I'm the leader, I'm in power, and I just don't like it, and that's it. This is why, and let's rethink this. And she would serve as a thought partner and not a dictator.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And Dr. Hall, wait, here's the piece that she left out. Nikita, I love you. I forgot about this. But, you know, she told me she had went to one of her best friends and said, am I really this way? And her friend was like, yeah. And so Nikita was like, well, why didn't you tell me? And her friend was like,
I don't know. because you know what? Because it's really hard. It's really hard to say those kinds of things to people. But Dr. Sims, like you said, if you really want people to grow, you say it with love. Like I'm sure you didn't say, get some emotional intelligence around.
No, we read articles.
Yeah.
We turn into a real professional development. I do think that you have to be tactful. And I will say this, it was also reciprocated, because there are areas that I need development too. And she had gotten to the point, she's like, okay, Dr. Sims or Sim, whatever I was at the time. and I like to create that space because it is not one-sided. You know, I want a thought partner, and she would call out some things for me too. So, hey.
Awesome. Okay, so just a couple more questions. Number one, I wanted the both of you to talk about anything about your leadership or methods that you use in school that have shifted because of the pandemic? And are there some things that are bright spots, some things that are going better because of the way that we now have to interact with each other? Like, for example, I was interviewing a principal at a school for a chapter we wrote in the book, and he talked about the fact that he has more parents participating in report card pickups and conferences now than ever before because they're open to being able to do it on Zoom. Have you found any bright spots, and what do you see for like the upcoming year as some of the things that you'll be focusing on in your schools?
For me, the bright spots have been the SEL piece, the social learning piece. That has been huge. And coming into Howe as the principal, I have to say that they had an excellent SEL program going on, and it actually came about due to the pandemic. They started a heavy focus on SEL remotely and continued it once the students came in person.
Oh, wow.
I think the words empathy and compassion, because those are two different things. Having empathy for our students, having compassion for our students, and then making sure that our practices are equitable. I think those are three very important terms, especially considering what's been going on with this pandemic. We have to, and I learned this with Dr. Sims, social emotional intelligence. It's not business as usual. It definitely isn't business as we have to address what's going on, and it is essential that we address the needs of our kids, whether it's around the pandemic, whether it's around what they have going on at home. You know, we could talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where if they're hungry, we can't expect those kids to sit in this classroom and focus if they're wondering where their next meal is going to come from. So whatever we need to provide for any individual kid, then we need to meet that need. It's essential because we're not going to reach our instructional and our educational goals, and we're not going to show academic growth if we don't get in here.
The whole check. Yep.
Meet their needs for who they are as individuals first.
Cool. Yeah. Love it.
I think with the pandemic, and because I do have somewhat of a transient population, one of the barriers was not seeing our parents and families in person and getting that human connection. And so I was very happy to return in person so we can build that, because that family feel that you talk about is very genuine, because I do want to know, oh, that's such and such mom. Oh, that's the sibling of this person. And, you know, one of the things that drives me crazy about my school, a lot of times when people come into this community, they feel like they're either superior or they shouldn't be here. And these parents, no, we have caring parents. And you just need to get to know our parents. You're no different. And once they assimilate, they're like, oh, and we like to have events like we just had our mother-son dance. And then parents got to meet each other, you know. Then sometimes when I have to have peace circles, I bring the parents in first, so adults are on the same page. Then kids can join the conversation, because I think that's what's going on in the world. You know, they don't see alignment. Everybody is on polar opposites. So
right.
The pandemic, we had to strengthen that relationships with our families, so they know that we do care. This is not business as usual. And I read something that Cardi B said that really upset me. You know, it said something about teachers are just here to get a check. No, not here. We work very hard and we really do care, and we go above and beyond because we do care. So the pandemic, the relationship piece.
And you know what, there couldn't be a check big enough for what you do, and you do every single day. And I've seen you in action, Dr. Sims, and it's 5:30 Chicago time. You still at school. And I know you get there early in the morning. Like, there's not a check big enough to pay educators for what they've been doing for forever, but especially for these last few years. Okay, so here's our ending quote. I always end with a quote, and I find one of I call them OGs, who are just people that I have been studying about and that I didn't know about before, and just learning new things about them. So Angela Davis has a quote that says, "I'm no longer accepting the things that I cannot change. I'm changing the things that I cannot accept." And that feels like the two of you. it feels like the two of you, because you jumped in and you're doing work that a whole bunch of people couldn't do. And you're doing it with grace, and you're distributing leadership. And Dr. Sims, you're building leaders, and I know you are too. Principal Horn, you're gonna be Dr. Sims too. But I know that you're building leaders because that's how you were taught to be a leader.
Mhm.
So what is that quote? I'm no longer accepting the things that I cannot change. I'm changing the things that I can no longer accept. What is something you can't accept that you're not going to be okay until it's right?
Well, I'll jump in first because this is what stands out, and it may be a little unorthodox, but
That's cool.
I can no longer accept the pandemic as an excuse. As an excuse to not teach, as an excuse to hide, as an excuse not to address parents, address behaviors, as an excuse to miss work, as an excuse to not do the work.
Amen.
So the pandemic happened, and it's gonna be here, but we have to shift our minds to a we can do, we will do attitude. So
amen. I love it. Okay, Principal Horn, take us out.
Absolutely. Same thing. I cannot accept things that are out of our control.
Right.
Once they come through these doors, we can control everything that happens once they come to this school. I can't control what they have going on at home. I can't control this pandemic. I can't control if daddy is not there. I can't control how much money they make. I can't control any of that. But once they come in here, we can control everything that we give them, everything that we say to them, all the hugs, all the empathy, everything that happens in this building, we have complete and total control over. And I will not accept the excuses that are out of our control.
Amen. Thank you too so much. This was so good. Like I said, I've never had a team that like this person grew that person, and I knew Dr. Sims before she was Dr. Sims, and to see your progress is amazing. I am so proud of you, and I am so proud of you,
Nikita. I'm here speaking. I'm like, oh my God.
We need to do dinner after this. I am so proud of both of you, and thank you for doing that work that you do every single day and you're still at school too.
I'm still here. At least for another hour.
Oh my God. Yeah. Thank you so much for being a guest on Urban Legends.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.